thank you for joining us today. Before we start, I would like to set the context as to why we are here and what is the whole construct around the growth customer engagement series and what are we going to achieve today. I'll walk you through that. A quick introduction. We have Seema on the panel, who's head of marketing from mPocket. We have Hitat, who's the founding member and head of marketing from Frio, and myself, Vishal. I run customer strat, pre-sales, and martech solution for India. Uh, from a perspective of what we want to do, see, we've worked with a plethora of consumer internet brands in India and globally. We have seen many growth product and marketing teams reinvent the wheel, kind of build the same turnkey solution again and again. We have realized that this happens because there is a lack of community where marketeers, product managers, marketing teams could come together and kind of learn from each other's experience, kind of share the best practices in the whole martech and marketing ecosystem. This whole notion has led us for creation of the Hash Growth Series. Our objective with this is to enable peer-to-peer learning, along with opportunities to network and connect with other brands from globally. So today's discussion, which is trust, convenience, and long-term engagement in fintech. So if you look at trust, it's the whole conversation around privacy, around customer data. Convenience is the whole construct of how the customer is getting the customer experience. How do you get the customer to achieve the goals in a shorter period of time? And long-term engagement is one-to-one marketing and martech strategy. All this kind of under the umbrella of fintech is what we're going to talk today. The session will discuss the role of fintech industry during pandemic and post-pandemic during the economic recovery, from the distribution of the funds, financial support, to increase importance of customer engagement channels, agile infrastructure, new innovation, and martech deployments. The session will kind of reflect on the challenges as a panel we have learned, and also consider this as an opportunity to push the economic recovery and use this period of rebuilding phase for positive improvement. That's the whole objective of today's session. I'll quickly let Seema and Hitat introduce themselves, and we'll get started on the panel. Seema, you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Vishal. Whatever you said is, bang on. Hi, guys. I'm currently leading the marketing team for mPocket. And prior to that, I've got almost 10 plus years of work experience into marketing, I'll say, a couple of years into digital marketing. I've worked across various industries, right from hospitality to entertainment, to gaming, and then fintech. I hope to work in other industries in future. So yeah, as far as digital is concerned, or trust and fraud and such things are concerned, I think that's more or less similar for each industry. Only thing is that the approach is slightly different, the channels are slightly different.
Sure.
I hope that you guys will enjoy this session. Hitat, over to you.
Thanks, Seema. Thanks, Vishal. Thank you guys for having me here. I lead the marketing team at Frio. Frio is India's first credit-led neobank. And yes, as Seema said, that the flavor changes. How trust is of course important across all industries, but I think it's far more important in the finance industry because you're talking about people's money.
Sure.
And when you're talking about somebody else's money, trust is, I think, the first step towards even making a relationship with that customer. So of course, trust is important. Of course, everybody is looking for a great convenience. Who doesn't want a great convenience? People are looking for better experiences. But how can fintechs deliver this? That's where the real challenge is. And maybe if we are able to share a few stories, learn from you guys as well, that will be, I think, the overall summary for this session. So thank you for having us here.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you, Hitat. It's a privilege to have you and talk to you to understand what's happening in the fintech ecosystem currently. I'll start with in the last 2 years during pandemic, the fintech startups organization have helped people across the country and globally to access the credit line. They've also helped us to get instant loans without us trying to step out and reach out to a bank. The banks were closed. Hitat, if you could tell us, how would you describe this growth during this period, and how has it fared till now for you?
Okay. So, see, of course, I think everybody got impacted by COVID-19. There
Sure.
was sudden lockdown that was there. There were a lot of predicted risks that suddenly came in. There were a lot of policy and process changes that banks and the whole finance industry had to quickly adapt to.
Yeah.
Right? And there was literally no time. There were regulatory solutions that were being implemented, but again, there was no time. So there was moratorium 1.0, moratorium 2.0,
Yes.
there was restructure. And when all of this was like handled, suddenly there was second wave. So it's kind of like being a very, very adventurous and a very always be on your toes kind of year in the last 1 year. And of course, yes, credit was impacted as an overall industry because it was growing very fast, etc., etc. Suddenly, because of all of these things, it nosedived. But what we have seen is that now the recoveries are far better
Correct. Yep.
as we are moving into the next phase.
Yep.
Specifically for Freo, if I have to say, then yes, there was a dip, but now our disbursements are back to the numbers that they used to be pre-COVID.
Sure.
And not just that, we are also ready with 2 new business lines. We are ready with a few more products out there. So
sure.
There's been a certain growth that's been there, but I think finance as an industry is very hard and stubborn industry. They push forward and they figure out how to dodge all these goals and move ahead.
Sure.
That's what's been. Now talking of course about the future, I would say that as we said, all of these things impacted massively everybody. A lot of people had to change their business models as well. People had to figure out new processes. Suddenly, the whole UI of the app needed to be changed. The communication strategy needed to be changed. So all of these things happened. But there was another positive shift that happened specifically in the credit industry. One thing that was done was, I think, risk managers and maybe credit teams across all the finance players, they started looking at customer segments in a different manner.
Okay.
There used to be a certain playbook that, yeah, these are some of the good customers, etc., etc. But because of all these restrictions, now that so many constraints are there, now they are looking at the same problem with a different lens. And that has helped them come up with new products that did not exist almost a year back. People were not able to actually pay or be buy now, pay later kind of products. It was not really there, right? There were a lot of new models. They were not neobanks. So all of this has actually come as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. And you rightly said that, yes, the whole economic recovery is actually dependent on credit. Credit is the one which will be leading people out of their homes and so that they can spend it can jumpstart that particular engine. So it is at the forefront. Things look hopeful. So fingers crossed.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Vedant. I think a few takeaways from what you said is there is opportunity for economic recovery from a credit perspective. You talked about how the user interface, whether it's the app, whether it's the brand properties, that needs to be relooked. And there has been a positive growth. Seema, what's your point of view during this pandemic? How did you see growth in last 1 year, and what are you seeing in future?
So I think, so we're going back to that Dalgona era where people just didn't learn how to make a Dalgona coffee or TikTok videos, but they actually adapted to using online payments that actually kind of helped companies like us. I remember my father going ahead and understanding how do I use Google Pay to shop from Big Basket. So it was not just, when the moratorium happened that time, there was like a pause in the whole fintech industry. Campaigns, budgets were lowered down. People had, companies had stopped giving loans because they were trying to understand what's happening. But there were customers whose partners probably had lost their job. There were medical emergencies that had come. So during that period, like Hitat rightly said, risk and credit team got a lot of understanding. Along with that, a lot of companies invested a lot of money on tech and product team because, though these apps were always available, but I think people were still not used to going for eKYC or video KYC, I'll say.
Yep.
I remember having pickup boys in our company also who would go and collect Aadhaar for people or
Yes.
KYC
Yep.
for people. So I think during that period, company also emerged, adapted a lot. They went ahead and created so many products, and they thought about how do I make that contactless? How do I make money easy to transfer? So I think the growth worked because both the parties were kind of evolving. And thanks to COVID, I mean, everything happens for good. Of course, a lot of people face a
Yep.
lot of issues, but then yes, COVID did give a lot of chance to companies, or to also to come up with newer products, understand their customers better. I think we recently can do payment through our smart watches.
Yep.
So all of that innovation happened because of this crisis that came, and these innovations are leading to higher growth, higher customer conversion, more people downloading the app and getting used to this taking loan online system, I guess.
Got it, Seema. Got it. So your point is during the pandemic, it's not only the Gen Z and the millennials, even even the senior folks have started using digital. It's got the consumer is ahead of the marketer today. He is the guy who's driving the adoption. We as marketers are trying to play the catch-up game, and because of the situation, the whole ecosystem has moved towards digital. I think it's a very fair assessment of what's happening today. As we speak of vertical growth and the scope in future, which is driven by behavioral change of the customer and which is driving the current growth. What I would want to know is try to jump to marketing and MarTech, which we probably are focused on. That with a lot of new users being onboarded, and the acquisition is because of the customer wanting to come digital. So, what are the different engagement channels you see, and how do you ensure kind of consistency in communication? So, Hitat, if you would want to take that, and then we could come back to Seema. So the question is, with the new acquisition, with more customers coming to us, what are the new channels for customer engagement, and how do we kind of do consistent messaging across different channels?
Sure. So when we started MoneyTap around 5-6 years back, we took a very conscious call that we want to keep content internal. We don't want to have external help, and this actually helped us a lot. It was very difficult because you need to understand what situation you are trying to solve or create the content for. What emotions the customer would go through each screen of your app. Will that additional email actually add any value, or is it just going to be another redundant list of lot of emails in your inbox? So all of these are like some of the hard decisions that a marketer needs to take. Now, what happened is we were very clear about our marketing stack before we launched the product. We did have MoEngage, AppsFlyer, a lot of measurement tools that were there, that were already there, which helped us get some kind of an insight within the persona and the behavior of the user. Now, basis that, what we did was we were able to, and then of course we had a few thumb rules as well. Finance as an industry, finance and I think math as well, for the common person, for the Aam Aadmi, it is very difficult and very scary, right? Because that's how it's been marketed over the last few years. So is there a way of maybe not carrying away the customers with your content? Is there a way of maybe not using jargons? Is there a way of explaining something that can be done in a very simple manner? So that's what we focused on from our content side of things. So that set a certain tone. We already had our marketing stack in place. And when all of these things were in place, then we just focused more on processes. We focus more on processes and measurements. You send an email, you quickly measure that, okay, what is the emotional quotient for this email? Is it actually going to help a value, etc., and then repeat the process again, until you hit a certain balance, right? So that's how it's been at our side. And I think some of the new channels that are actually coming up are WhatsApp as a communication channel. So I think now it's a norm that if you're traveling via air travel, via flights, you are expecting the air ticket to be there in your WhatsApp chat. Right? That's the behavior these days with a lot of users. Imagine this happening for banking. That every month your WhatsApp reminds you that, hey, this is your bank account statements, of course in an encrypted manner, but you get a PDF which is encrypted, which says, hey, this is how you have actually gone ahead and overboard on your spends. This is, you're upcoming EMIs. This is what you should do.
Yep.
Right? So
Yep.
imagine this kind of a interaction. That is something that
Yep.
is that has very high potential. That's being adapted very, very fast in the finance industry. Yeah, this is one of the most powerful channels. WhatsApp. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, Hitat, I was losing you for a while. Seema, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you, Vishal.
Hello,
Yes, Vishal, I can hear you.
Hitat, is it me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
I thought there was some jittery, but now I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So Seema, quickly, if you would want to define what is omni-channel for you and how would you build an omni-channel experience for customer in this ecosystem? Like, I think Hitat kind of talked about the Martech stack, which is kind of measurements of AppsFlyer, marketing automation, which is MoEngage. He talked about a lot on WhatsApp, which is a no-brainer today. As he said, we are moving towards an ecosystem where I would want to make payments on WhatsApp. I would want to kind of look at my air tickets on WhatsApp. I would want to be reminded on my EMIs on WhatsApp. But if you as a marketer is looking at the whole ecosystem of brand properties, in-app, web, in-banking store, and WhatsApp, how would you build this omni-channel experience? Or what would be your direction in doing that?
I think Hitat covered a lot of most important points, I guess, like Hitat pointed out rightly, customers. So the only way to interact with customer, I mean, see the difference between bank and us is that, in banking, there is a person who's there to help you and everything. But when we say that we are giving you digital loan, we would love to give an experience where the customer doesn't have to get in touch with us at all. Something like how Uber is. That makes the complete experience, I think, digitalized types. So I think today NBFCs are also moving towards that with callback feature, or maybe chat feature, or maybe email and respond immediately, or WhatsApp for that matter. I mean, though it's not related to fintech, but I would love to give an example of Lenskart here. Lenskart has recently come up with an amazing feature where an agent can share the screen. If the customer is facing any problem, customer can share the screen with agent, and agent can help them shop. So I think everybody is moving towards that direction where I am reachable to the way you are, or the customer is comfortable with. Gone are the days, I think, where you would actually stay online in a queue to just answer your one query. So I think that's the way every industry is probably moving towards, and kind of trying to get into, so that our operation cost is lower, but our experience is better. I think more than cost is the experience. The customer's ease is something that I think everybody is going towards. And as far as making sure that the communication is similar all across channel, it is very, very important for all the teams to work together. And I think brand manual jo hua karta tha, during making key brand creatives mein kya jayega types, I think now it's the complete brand manual, right from what is how's the email going to, how's the reply going to, answering the comments that are coming on your Facebook, or reaching out to customers who are trying to reach you on your Google Play Store reviews and everything. So I think so that's how the whole thing is. Like Hitat rightly said, WhatsApp is something big because everybody is on WhatsApp. Everybody is comfortable communicating on WhatsApp. So I think that's one of the channels which is coming up really well. And another one I would like to pinpoint is, of course, MoEngage feature, not because they are just hosting our session, but yeah, truly it's a very good tool in order to remind people about a very cost effective tool, I'll say, from our perspective, to remind people about okay, your payment is due, or maybe your credit line has increased, or you have referral points and stuff like that.
Sure, sure. So the way we are managing as an agency, when we manage brands, when we manage the whole ecosystem, what we do today is we look at how do we run segmentation, then we get to automated journeys, and then we get to measurement. When we're looking at automated journeys, this is where we kind of build journeys to engage different personas of the customer. So if there is a life stage event where we are trying to communicate a happy birthday, anniversary, those are automated and executed separately. If we are running an acquisition campaign versus if we are running, if we are trying to activate a lapsed user, all these, and then we get into the strategy of pushing digital versus one-to-one marketing. The one-to-one marketing is WhatsApp. The digital is where we try to get reach, where we are trying to acquire new customers. We kind of build through our existing new customers to push it on digital and then get to WhatsApp. And that's a way we look at an omni-channel experience. We kind of try to stitch the customer data back into the system. So we look at, if I'm running, I would always start as a marketer, I would always start with the cheapest channel, which is an email, which generally might not work in tier 1 towns. Then get to SMS. For WhatsApp, it's a very different strategy. It is still evolving. Depending upon, do we have the permissions to reach out on WhatsApp, and then we get to digital, and we then stitch all this data back into a central system to understand the preference of the customer, and also try to run better media efficiencies. Because if I hit Facebook faster, it drives all my budgets. While if I go bottoms up, look at email, SMS, and digital, and also augment it with WhatsApp, it helps me to build the omni-channel experience, what we call as trying to touch the customer at every different point during the funnel stages. Now, I did talk about, so we did talk about channels, we did talk about what is omni-channel and what you as a marketer at a brand level is experiencing. What I would want to understand is, how do you believe in customer segmentation, and what is your strategy for segmentation and personalization? So Hitaad, if you want to pick it up, and then we get to Seema.
Sure. So, of course, segmentation, like from a finance perspective, it has multiple dimensions. Now, if you look at, let's say, and let me just like quickly go through a few dimensions that we at Frio use. So one of the major dimension is that now that we are a multi-product company, what is the product fitment of that particular customer with a certain product attribute or the need that is there? That's a very basic segmentation. And then there is, let's say, risk segment. So whether it is a high risk customer, low risk customer, medium risk customer, then there is also the offer that is being offered to that particular risk. And that itself has a layer. Medium risk customers, you'll give certain interest rates, certain offers to activate, etc., certain tenures. So it's just, if you look at it, it's just branching out. So there are multiple layers of segments. Now, on top of this, there would also be another factor that's called recency. Right. And there is a certain time period when a customer engages with you, there is a certain short window of time period. If you're able to, like, that's when your probability of converting or giving a good experience to that customer or a good moment marketing is like very, very high. Once that period is lost, then you need to like maybe do more of a kind of like catch up kind of experience with the customer, right? So these are all dimensions with which we cut our segments that are there. We of course have a huge base that is there, and then I would also say that there are certain preferences, especially I would say content preferences. So whether the customer actually likes to have an email written in English or in English, or maybe in a vernacular language. So that's again another level of segmentation. So if you look at it, this system is super complex.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And then it will require a lot of different journeys as well. Journeys, because maybe if you are acquiring a user from a digital ad, right, they'll come with a certain context. Versus if a user is coming from some kind of a partnerships or some kind of a, let's say, a DSA segment, then they'll have a different context. So then you need to like catch up on that customer to the same level with the rest of the customers, so that your brand marketing can also sync up. So with all of this, I think it becomes super difficult to manage, and that's where I think if in the beginning marketers take a decision of selecting a good marketing stack, actually going ahead and deep diving into the raw data, figuring out what dimensions, what features, what kind of attributes should be used, should not be used, or are must have. And that's where I think they need to spend some time with the tech and the product team. This is how I think we have cracked it at our side. Not sure about how others approach this, but this is how I think to a certain level you can manage complex situations.
Yep. So
and of course, once all of this is there, then you can personalize. Personalization is not really a magic trick. It's all about, let's say, are your small pieces in place or not?
Got it. Got it. So if you look at it from a tech guy who's converted himself to marketing, I look at the core attributes, which is the banking attributes. So if it's an ETB customer in a pure banking ecosystem existing to bank customers, uska salary kitna hai, how much money he has in the account, then you have the credit bureau data, then you figure out whether it's high risk, low risk. All this data is sitting in the banking ecosystem. Then there is a data which is how have you acquired the customer? Have I acquired him from Facebook? Have I acquired him from search, which is high intent, or have I acquired him from partnerships? So these two data set needs to come together, and then on top of it, there is promotions which we are offering to the customer, which has an expiry date, and then this needs to be stitched out for a marketing automation platform, which can then communicate with the customer. So I think while this sounds simple, as you said, the devil is in the details. We'll have to get back on the taxonomy of the data, how it is structured within our banking system, the taxonomy of how we are acquiring the data, what attributes we're getting when we are acquiring the customer to our properties, and also how are we rolling out the offers, and then stitching it back to the marketing automation channel. So I think it's an interesting conversation. Seema, I don't know what's your point of view on what attributes we should be collecting, what attributes are important from running the marketing ecosystem, keeping in mind that there is going to be a GDPR sometime down the line, keeping in mind of privacy, while we might not want to touch that part, but what is the attributes and segments or data points that you think are important when we are trying to build this segmentation piece?
That's a very so this topic always is kind of it's very interesting and debatable types, because there are so many points and so many attributes, and there are so many channels which help you pinpoint towards understanding that okay, what's working with what. So apart from users behavior, like okay, so there are a lot of details that user does give us when he's applying for loan. So apart from understanding okay, what kind of banking activities is involved in, or what kind of money he's looking for, or what kind of product he may be interested in, apart from that there's age, there's gender, there are a lot of other factors also which kind of I think pushes us to probably personalize the whole content or the strategy for each one of them. Like for example, if the customer is about 25, if I'm showing him, I'm just giving you an example, if I'm showing him a video where I'm trying to do a chat with my friend that okay, what aapko loan chahiye to aap Mpocket download kar lo types, versus showing that to an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old, it's gonna probably give a separate or a different effect altogether, and it's gonna kind of show a different thing altogether. For example, if I am showing a 60-year-old or a 45-50-year-old person that okay, take money for blah 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 trip to Himalaya or Ladakh, that's not gonna work, right? So I think attributes is something that is, I mean, and that learning just doesn't come from how is the person behaving inside your app. It also comes from when you're running campaigns on your channels like Facebook and Google, or if you're trying to send any push notes, or, there are a lot of places where you could do A/B tests. So I think there are a lot of stitching, and there's a lot of experiments that you got to do in order to find that particular right spot, that okay, this is the place, or this is the thing that we should probably try for this segment, and then only a segmentation can be done. You cannot say that 18 to 20 ke liye hum yahi karenge. Usme bhi bahut sare, I think there could be a lot of buckets that you could probably make.
So what you're saying is our old school demographics, where we are looking at primary research or syndicated study to create segmentation, which is the new SCCA or the new SCCB, might not fundamentally work between 18 to 22. So while we're looking at segmentation, there is a primary research or an old school segmentation which is done, which needs to be added with the behavioral data.
Right.
That behavioral data is my first party data, which is how is that customer interacting with me on my brand properties.
Right.
Also, the whole construct of zero party data is how the customer is interacting with me on my Facebook ads or
Right.
on my search. So I get that media data, I get his data, and I look at if I have other attributes from partnerships to understand how I'm going to communicate to the customer. I
I'm
think
sure that must be your approach as well at an agency, right? I mean, it depends from industry to industry, but I think the approach would be similar, right, Vishal?
Absolutely. The way we look at this, Seema, is I'll give you an example of one of the banks where we were trying to set up DMP and marketing automation, and we ran campaigns for ETB customers to cross-sell home loans. So pre-approved personal loans and home loans, looking at the data from partnerships. The bank was running multiple lines of businesses, from mutual funds to securities to acquiring. They had also acquired a startup in fintech. We were trying to stitch data across to try to understand whether the customer would look at microloans, whether the customer would look at a pre-approved 5 lakh loan, and then stitch it with the banking data they have, and trying to push this into a DMP or a CDP, stitch it with the Google Analytics, push it out to a marketing automation platforms. So we do look at across the data ecosystems, and we've kind of executed a campaign touching every channel and getting the data back. As I said previously, we were trying to see if we could activate the campaign at least on 4 different channels at one time with different cohorts. We had defined cohorts which could activate on SMS. We had defined cohorts, which was the last segment, which needed a call center. So the call center seemed to be the most expensive channel. So we've looked at customers who drop out at the last stage for the call center to remind them कि आप यहाँ पर आए थे, do you still want the pre-approved 2 lakh loan? So we've done that. Coming back, so few things at the start, as you said and Hitat said, that there is a lot of intent today from the customers to drive digital adoption, and there is also so much tech we have talked about. There is so much need to integrate data. So there is the whole conversations on blockchain, which I still think is in early stages. AI, artificial intelligence, automation, robotic process automation, a lot of this has come up. A lot of these are conversations, and a lot of these have been implemented by marketers. What I wanted to know, like either of you could pick up the baton, is what do you see from a MarTech stack? I think Hitat talked about a lot on MarTech stack. Like, how do you see MarTech stack, and how do you simplify this? Like, a lot of these are overwhelming, but how do you simplify this, and how do you see tech changing this ecosystem?
Sure. So yes, it is complex. Let's not sugarcoat it. Marketing tech stack, and of course not just complex. Like, what fits you at the moment. That's also important, because you won't go ahead and like implement CDPs when you are maybe even you don't even have a small. You just have a small base of customers, right? So a lot of these decisions marketers need to take as things evolve. But I definitely think that, see, a few of must-haves in a marketing tech stack is, first is of course measurement.
Yep.
Without measuring, you can't do digital. Without measurement, and that also at a unit level to a certain level. I know we are talking about privacy, we are talking about a lot of other stuff, but you need measurement at a unit level to a certain level so that you can build your own internal systems on top of it.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
That's where maybe your MMPs come into picture. AppsFlyer, Edges, Branch, all of these guys, they help you figure out where did a certain install or a certain behavior or a user got acquired from. Then of course, if once you have gotten the customer in your funnel, what is your experience? What is the analytics of usage of that particular or the I would say interaction of that user throughout your app, throughout your journey? That's where I think marketing analytics come into picture.
Sure.
And this is where I think to a certain level, Moengage, Localytics, a lot of other, I would say there are different app analytics tools that are there.
Yep.
App Annie, I would say a lot more. So these will help you actually figure out how much time a user is spending on your screen. Is there certain kind of a dead click that is happening on the screen or not?
Correct.
Right? And this is required to enhance your experience. And then comes, let's say, the final part, which is of course the communication side. That as suddenly if you grow and there are complex situations that are there, it will be very difficult for a marketer to manage so many campaigns with different levels. If you
Yep.
are still, let's say, lagging behind in doing segmentation on Excel sheets, you'll be lost at
Yep.
certain level, right? So you need some partner who can manage all of this together in a very drag and drop manner. And
Correct.
that's where I think you need something for a good marketing automation engine. So all of these, I think, these are the three primary ones that are there. Of
Yep.
course, you can have more tools, but after a certain point of time, I think it's just fancy to have more tools,
Yeah. Yeah.
or they will be just or they'll be just catering to a certain need, but not really must have. They're good haves,
Yep.
right? So maybe you can also have a tool for your ASO. You can have a tool for figuring out how do you want to attack your SEO strategy, or
Yep.
how do you want to keep a watch on your competitors,
Yep.
or what is the search behavior. But these are not really, I would say, must haves. These are more around solving a very certain objective that you have in your
Yep.
strategy.
Yep.
And that's how I think I look at marketing tech stack. Uh, More than happy to hear thoughts from Seema as well.
Go ahead, Seema.
So I think he covered most of the points, I guess. And apart from this, I think these data points also help us understand that what is the need of the customer, or what product innovation should have happened. In the sense, when you see, okay, Slice has come up with a card, or maybe Credit B is launching a card, you feel, we should be there in that sector probably.
Yep.
But then it is quite possible that probably that particular product is not for your customer, or maybe they don't want that product or something of that sort, or maybe that segment is overcrowded or something of that sort. Those all things, I think, they come up very clearly or visibly through these data points only. I mean, companies do try to take feedback from the customer, but I think that's just a one-sided approach, because a lot of
Yep.
time customers are themselves confused. Like, you ask me, do you need a credit card? I'll say no. But then tomorrow, if someone calls me and say that, okay, you're getting extra miles, or maybe a trip to Singapore free, I might just say, okay, I'll take the credit card. So, asking the customer that, okay, aapko ye product chahiye ya nahi chahiye, I think that will be a very biased way to decide things. But I think, the AI tools and the tools which that was talking about, that also kind of pushes product managers to come up with, okay, what's new that we could offer to.
Yep.
After understanding, okay, users behavior is like this, he probably shops, he likes Amazon a lot, and he's buying gift vouchers for Amazon from our gift cards from our app, then why not try to personalize the whole experience for him, or for any customer for that matter. So
Yep.
yeah, I think that was the only thing that I wanted to add.
Yep. Good. Good. So
And I would just add one more thing, Vishal. I think
Yep.
SQL, I don't know if you want to count it as a tool or not, but that's something that is also needed.
Yep.
Maybe it's not in the rule book somewhere, but marketers need to have the power of cutting through your data multiple times, looking at different angles, figuring out what is actually happening in a certain segment.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and for that, I think it's more of a skill. It's not really a tool, but that's essential for having a good marketing stack
Yep.
for a
Yep.
digital marketer.
I hear you with that. So I think I would want to like summarize this last important conversation with saying that Seema is saying that could be a credit card which could give me a Singapore trip. I am okay with with two cards and take my family to Singapore. But coming back to what you said is you started with measurement. You talked about the attribution platforms, the AppsFlyer, the Branch, and the MATs of the world. You talked about in-app analytics, which could be Firebase, GA360, Localytics, Mixpanel. Then we talk about the marketing automation platform. The way we at agency look at how would we stitch this all together is start like draw a standard old school funnel. Look at okay, I want to acquire more customers. How do I acquire more customers? Look at my best customers. Look at the customers who had the best journey, who had the ideal journey. Kind of build an analytics model to build lookalike of those customers. So and that's one piece, but there is more to it. Is when Heta talked about, there is so much in segmentation. There is the banking data, there is the media data, there is the channel data, there is offers. We kind of stitch that together, build it, and kind of build lookalike models. push it out to the media channels. So आप Facebook चलाओ, you run search, you run DV360, you start running from an acquisition campaigns. If you're going to run brand, you could start building lookalikes for running better reach campaigns. You take a step down, there is a high intent customer. This is where I would then get into analytics. So the customer has either downloaded my app or has come to my website. So I start getting into AppsFlyer. I start getting into GA360, start understanding the customer who's now showed intent. I try to stitch this data into a customer data platform, try to build the customer view at this level. Now, the next is when the customer, if it's a pure fintech ecosystem, there's not going to be a call center. If there is a call center, start thinking of building lead scoring algorithms, start building propensity scoring algorithms. Which is the customer who's going to buy? Where do I need to pay more attention? Which are the offers which are running hot? How do I stitch the best customers with the best offers? Then push the customer down in the funnel, start running one-to-one marketing. So I've done with digital marketing. Now I'm going to run one-to-one marketing. This is where a call center, a WhatsApp, an SMS, an email is going to come into the picture. This is where I need automation at scale. If I have a 10 lakh customer base, and if I have out of those 10 lakh, I have an offer which can go up to 5 lakh customers. And if of those 5 lakh customers, there are 2 lakhs who have come at this funnel stage. How do I then slice and dice these customers using a customer data platform, using segmentation, build those segments out, give it to a platform like MoEngage, and then let it run an automated journey. And when the customer buys, push that data back to CDP. So I know when I acquired this customer, when I sold the product to the customer, these are the channels which have worked, these are the offers which have worked, these are the customer data points which I was able to stitch back into my offers. And then I start thinking of loyalty. Then I start thinking of cross-sell, upsell. Then I start thinking of, I've sold one product. My average product per customer is 1.2. How do I get 2 products per customer? So that's the way I would look at the funnel. But I think it's a very interesting conversation. At 11:40, I think, Sandeep, do you want to look at Q&A from the audience?
Yes, we had one question.
Sure.
I just texted you, Vishal, on the chat, a private chat. And guys, do feel free to drop in your question, either the chat box or a Q&A box. We'll have another 10 minutes to take them up.
So there is a question which says, upcoming Android OS have reduced the push reachability, especially the Chinese devices, which are good penetration in rural. How do we go around this, improve reachability using push, or we consider other channels? So, so there are two. I'll hold on to my answer. I'll see if Seema, Hetat, if you want to give it a shot before I give my point of view. So the question is, with the increase focus on privacy, with the Chinese devices limiting the in-app notifications, how do we see which channels would work better? And do you think this is a hindrance for rural market?
Yeah, to a certain level, I believe this is a challenge. And why? I think because even a lot of our customer segments have a similar kind of a behavior. So we internally also face a lot of challenge in sending push notifications a lot of times to certain devices that are there. Now, I don't have a perfect answer for this, honestly.
Sure,
I can maybe just share how we manage this situation. So when our push notifications are maybe not delivering, or there has been some kind of a pushback and there's a challenge over there. So next is we go ahead and go to our traditional channels that are SMS and email.
Yep.
Now, sometimes SMS becomes intrusive, and unfortunately, it's also a little bit expensive to be done at scale. And maybe in rural markets, I think email, again, I might be wrong in my assumption, but I'm assuming that rural markets, emails won't be the primary channel which is there.
Absolutely.
So when all of these constraints are there, right, that's when I think it pushes us for figuring out, okay, what else can be done? So IVRs,
Yep.
rich media that is there.
Yes.
In SMS itself, SMS is something that they, of course, respond to, but can we break clutter within the SMS channel itself? Is there any kind of a rich media that can be invested in? Is there any kind of a, let's say, WhatsApp consent that can be taken from using SMS as a channel?
Yep.
Right. And once that is done, then of course you have another channel, which is WhatsApp, that you can use to reach out to that user whom you are not able to reach out today. So all of these things is how I think to a certain level we are managing the situation, but would love to know more from both of you guys as well. What do you guys think?
No, I think this was the same issue. I mean, I remember when iOS had come with a privacy thing, I think that Facebook had hosted some, Facebook was kind of trying to see how can they let iOS not do that. And they had kind of, hosted a couple of channels to explain how are they dealing with this situation. So, as a marketer, I do feel that, it's difficult to deal, but as a customer or maybe for some other app or something, I do feel that that's, I think, one of the requirements as well, because that's something that's my right, I guess. So I think I mean, the only channels left are, you can't really get into anyone's phone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't want you, they don't want you. So I think of course, apart from emails or maybe WhatsApp, I think Facebook impression-based campaigns and Google remarketing campaigns also kind of work in case of brand hammering or reminding you about, okay, you should probably visit the app and probably understand or do the needful. For example, if I'm coming up with a referral program and there is a device which is not letting me send a push note that, okay, Diwali is coming, maybe you can earn more from referral. I think mediums like Facebook or Google are always there. And yes, they are slightly costlier, but I think they do the job well to get the CAC at the expected level. Vishal, would love to hear from you. I mean,
so the way I would break this into two questions. While the question one, which the audience has asked, is with the Android and iOS. The iOS 14 had some changes. Android was doing some changes. It's impacting in-app notifications. So if I take the questions prima facie, that's true. I would look at fundamentally, if you're looking at tier 2 markets, I would look at the Takatak, the TikTok, the Roposos of the world. They've worked fundamentally very well if I want to re-engage the customer. Whether it would work, how well it would work with BFSI is a conversation that needs to happen. I really like the idea which Siddharth talked about, and we have done that in the past. Let's look at rich media on SMS. Let's figure out how could I get more consent for WhatsApp, because these two channels are going to beautifully work. So there is, and then you talked about Facebook and remarketing. So especially for tier 2, Insta is still very big in tier 2. The whole construct of snackable videos, which is Roposo Takatak, works very beautiful. There are channels like SMS, rich media SMS. There are channels like WhatsApp which could work. But I would fundamentally challenge this. This is new to me, that I can't do in-app notification. The changes in iOS 14 were with the cookie ecosystem, where iOS 14 actually got rid of the IDFA, which is ID for advertisers. And then Android was taking that step of getting away from ad ID. But it still allowed me to do in-app notification. If I have an app as a brand, I could still talk to the customer. When I install the app, I could take that permission for in-app notification. I could still push in-app notification. And the second question, which you kind of touched upon, that in this ecosystem, probably in a couple of years, not today, where Chrome has decided to do away with cookies, they kind of extended that deadline by a couple of years. There is, and you talked about Facebook, how are they going to take care of it? So Google came with the whole conversation on Flock, which is federated learning on cohorts, where they were trying to build segments at edge. So they could actually build segments on the browser. They could identify SEMA as interest-based segments in BFSI marketing, and they could then push it out to the server. That's what Google is testing. Facebook came up with the conversion APIs from server. So I don't have to fundamentally fire a cookie from the website. I could fire it from the server. So there are solutions to both of these. It requires a little bit of tech help, and it requires a tech guy to support the marketing team. But there is opportunity, and I feel it is a better opportunity. With these changes, there are two advantages. As a consumer, it becomes better for me. As a marketer, it gives me more challenge and a better ecosystem. The whole construct of zero party and first party, how do I use that to then talk to the customer? And today we want to run the conversion APIs at the server side. So there is still a lot that can be done when post Chrome decides to stop the cookies, and after iOS has made the change in iOS 14. So that's the way I look at it. I don't know if it was too much tech. and I was trying to cover a lot of things in like 20 seconds. But long story short, there are better ways to solve for customer engagement. There are better ways to tell Facebook and Google, this is the customer who converted, or this is the customer who's come to my website from your channel. So there are ways to do it. That's not going anywhere. The cookies might go out. We might define new ways to integrate data, but it's still going to be there. So I don't know if it makes sense to you and Hitat.
No, it
No,
does.
absolutely it does.
It does. It does.
So one more question which has come is how do you think we should set up Martech stack and how it should be built for BFSI? So I don't know if I should be taking it, if one of you want to take a stab, and then I could add to it.
Actually, it'll be
Sure.
very interesting to hear from you, Vishal, I guess, because you are an agency, and I'm sure you might be working with startups like us and the bigger banks like, those.
So so when we are looking at a Martech stack, for, I would say we work more with larger banks. The fintech startups are kind of smarter than us. At least smarter than me. That's and they run faster than us. But what I would say is in both the systems, we first look at what are the business problems we are trying to solve for. So the first thing is we audit the house, like where am I today, and we kind of define the current state of the system. And it's a pure document which says these are the technologies implemented today. So as Hitat said, if I was going to work with Hitat, I would assume he's implemented AppsFlyer. I would assume he's implemented MoEngage, and then I would look at what are the current marketing goals he's set up for himself, and where are they failing. So I would kind of get the house in order, figure out abhi kya ho raha hai. Then I would also work with Hitat and the team to build the blue sky goal that, okay, this is the current customer acquisition number, and I want to grow 10x, and this is the budget. So I would kind of run a consult or a discovery for a few weeks with the key stakeholders, with the tech teams, with the marketing teams, with the brand teams, and the CXOs to figure out what is it today, where are the gaps, and where they want to go to. Then I would come to the Martech stack implementation. Before I get to implementation, the current state and to-be state would define that what are the tools which are missing and what are the budgets we have. And so there would be two key parameters to decide what tools and technologies we would recommend to the client and we would implement. So few of those parameters are what are the budgets we have, what are the use cases we want to solve for, and the third, what is the team structure at the client side who can manage this. So till the time we don't have a team structure at the client side to manage a technology stack, it would be the way Hitat said, that it would be just new toy with a kid. They would not be able to create value of it. So the budgets, the use cases, and the team structure would then define that let's build a whole Martech stack across the funnel. So starting from top funnel, do we need a customer data platform or do we need a DMP to run top funnel goals? Mid funnel, do we need a GA360? Do we need a mixed panel? Do we need advanced analytics like lead scoring? Do we need to get to the Pythons of the world and build something in GCP? And what that impact of that tool is going to be? And finally, then we'll start thinking of CRM tools and marketing automation tools. But and we'll kind of build a whole list of use cases and map tools to it, and kind of then add a cost both for implementation and support, and then build what we call as vision value roadmap. The vision value roadmap will tell us that what tools will impact the business most and could be the cheapest for us. So what are the low hanging fruits in an easier term? Okay, let's go with a MoEngage, let's go with an AppsFlyer, and I will be done for my first 6 months of use case. And what happens after the next 6 months is let's build a CDP. Let's not go for a DMP because the cookies are going to die. If I'm going to look at a CDP, let's look at an Indian version first because I'm limited with budget. I will go for an enterprise solution probably next year. And probably next March, I would start thinking of building analytic solution for my call center, build analytic solution for running media campaigns. That's the way we'll kind of build a 3-year roadmap, both for use cases and tools which go hand in hand. And a fundamental approach is going to be marketing and not technology. And we'll keep focusing on marketing. So that's, and I know we are running out of time. What I would do is quickly summarize the key takeaways. And before I do, I would let Seema, you and Hitat quickly summarize what were the key takeaways for you from this panel.
So I think, it was a very interesting session, especially, Hitat coming from, MoneyTap, and then I think he's building a new brand altogether. So I think it was very interesting to know his point of view, and from your agency point of view, it was interesting to know the approach. So I think we guys are on a same page as far as approach is concerned, and, using tech to derive at marketing strategies is concerned. But then yes, I mean, a couple of points that I would like to highlight is, that
I can't hear you, Seema.
Neither can I. Seema, we lost you. We lost you there.
So we can see you.
We can't hear you.
Okay, Hitat, you want to go and just summarize what do you think would be key takeaway?
Sure, absolutely. So Vishal, definitely, I think I have learned a few things from you around how to maybe manage and approach marketing stack. Because having done this in MoneyTap, it was a great experience for me.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think now that we are evolving into a larger brand, more products, etc., a lot of things. I think maybe I'll also sync up with you separately to understand what else can be done to a certain level. So my key takeaways for today's session are, of course, around, let's say, fintech as an industry has been very sturdy, has hold its fort for quite some time, and I think this was one of the most challenging period for fintech in the last few decades.
Yep.
Even if you look at, let's say, the whole evolution of fintech and the finance and how banking has been done in India, there used to be PSUs, then there used to be private sector banks, and now there is a neo banking concept where everything needs to be there available on a button click, right? And for doing that, I think a lot of players are a lot of fintechs, a lot of other players. They are all coming together. Somebody saying I'll solve the regulatory tech. Somebody saying I'll solve something else. I'll solve KYC, etc., etc.
Yep.
So my key takeaway for today is more around. It's going to be more modular in the future, right? That's where banking is going. Of course, all of this needs to be done in partnership with banks, with folks who have the legal rights to actually do banking. But fintechs and neobanks, they are actually bringing some kind of a magic flavor to the mix of how things have been done.
Sure.
So that's something which I think has been there. And of course, as marketers, our challenge is always to catch up on what is the next best talent that we can go and make a victory. So that's where we are. But glad to hear from both of you guys.
Thank you, Hitat.
My laptop's speaker is a bit this thing, so I had to again kind of from my other mobile. But yeah, I mean, I think we are running out of time, so I think Vishal, why don't you conclude the session?
Sure. So I think we discussed 3 or 4 key pointers. We talked about the kind of growth the industry has seen in last 2 years and how we have helped the consumer. While we have tried to do the catch-up game, I still feel the consumer is ahead of us as marketers today. We have talked about how the low interest rates, the current ecosystem has helped in driving adoption. You gave examples of how your parents and our parents today are actually becoming digital savvy. So it's the customers adopting in the current ecosystem. We talked about what is the importance of omnichannel. We talked about the examples of how we could run customer engagement across different channels. A lot of stress on WhatsApp, a lot of stress on in-app notification, a lot of stress on automated journeys for marketing automation. We also talked about how we could run engagement, what we could do for acquisition, what we could do for reactivating dormant users and acquiring new ones. And there was a lot of conversation on segmentation and personalization. Segmentation, especially the way Hitat brought out, there is a lot of data which is sitting around, and there is opportunity for marketers and tech guys using SQL to get into the actual data attributes before we think of larger tools. And then we also talked about how do we set up a MarTech stack and how do we approach a digital transformation project. So I think it was great talking to you, Hitat, Seema. Sandeep, that's that's a wrap from our side. If you have any closing comments.
Cool. Thank you so much, Vishal. It was really phenomenal. Thank you so much, Seema. Thanks, Siddharth. Thanks for being there with us. And thanks to all our audience for listening to our speakers. And thank you so much. And I'll see you at our next session, which is happening on 8th of September. It is going to be on NetTech. And I hope to see you all there. Thank you so much. Thanks, Vishal.